What's up, wrestling fans? I'm Doug.
And I'm Kevin.
This is the Two Bros Wrestling Show, WrestleMania Edition 2020, WrestleMania 36 Edition. I forgot what year it was, man. Can you believe that? Kevin, this year has been a little crazy anyway already, especially us rolling into WrestleMania. So let's get into this. I've got a list of matches here. You want to just run down the... I'm assuming this is I'm not sure if this is the actual order of the matches, but I've got Otis versus Ziggler up first. What are your thoughts on Otis versus Ziggler?
Well, we should note that there will probably be preliminary matches, or what we consider preliminary matches, on each night. Sure. Because it's 2 nights, 3 hours each night.
Is it
pre-show starting at 6?
Okay.
They're scheduled 7 to 10 each night.
Okay. And
then 1 hour on the pre-show. So I'm going to guess they divide it up with a couple of lower matches and then a headliner on night 1 and the same for night 2.
Yes.
I think you're probably good to say that Otis and Dolph is going to be low on the card, whichever night it appears on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm picking Otis. I mean, Otis has got to defend Mandy, and I'm thinking that, Ziggler will show his real self to her, and they'll go for that feel-good storyline. Are you in agreement?
I am in agreement. I've got my notes here. Otis goes over, and Ziggler gets what's coming, but only after some shenanigans from DeVille, and then everything kind of clicks with Mandy, and then we have that feel-good moment, that big win for Otis, and, the big guy gets the girl there at the end, and things work out, and we have a feel-good moment with them. Because really, I was thinking about this. It's one of the only WrestleMania matches that we're going to get that actually has a storyline that's been built over some time. And I think they have to pay that one off at the very least. Otis goes over, and like you say, it's the feel good. So I agree with you there. Otis goes over. Otis over Ziggler, definitely.
Maybe we should preface this for those that didn't see the last show, is that because most of this is pre-taped, it is going to be without fans, and a lot of it will not be at the Performance Center. So some of these matches may not be matches in the traditional sense of you're going to see them in the middle of a ring in the format of like 80,000 screaming fans like a WrestleMania. This is going to be a very different deal. But it's still WrestleMania week, so we got to be excited about it.
It's true. It's true that it's still WrestleMania week. We're being wrestling fans, we're definitely excited about it. I still question whether we should be having it. It still seems, especially with the things that have happened this week, where, we have new social distancing and non-essentials being shut down in Florida now, where the majority of this is going to be taped at the Performance Center in Orlando. It seems like it should have just been, Vince should have just called it, pushed it back, maybe made SummerSlam WrestleMania, but we're getting WrestleMania this weekend over 2 nights, pre-taped with no audience in attendance, and this is what we've got this year. But moving on, my next one on my list is Black versus Bobby Lashley, which seems really thrown together at the last minute, and is just a chance to get some people on the card. I'm a big fan of Aleister Black. I'm saying, I didn't even make any notes about this because there's really no storyline. They just threw it together. I'm saying Black wins, a black mass. It's quick, it's easy. It's not like a Goldberg spear jackhammer and it's over, but it should be a fairly quick match with Black coming out the winner.
I also am picking Black. It's really a pick 'em because there is really no story behind this. Right. But at this point, I think there's just more of a push right now of Aleister Black than Bobby Lashley. So I'm going Black also.
Yep, agreed. Next one on my list.
Now,
was that?
Next on my list, I had Elias versus Corbin, because surely that has to be down low on the card.
That's what I've got. Elias versus King Corbin. My notes simply say, I don't care. I mean,
funny you say that, because I don't know that anybody much cares. There's things I like about Elias. I don't think he's done much lately. Mm-hmm. There's nothing behind this. Everyone hates Corbin except Vince McMahon, and that's why I'm picking Corbin, because for whatever reason, you're going to have some heels win on the show, and for whatever reason, Vince seems to love him. So I'm thinking the King's going to have one more thing to brag about.
Yeah, probably right. But, I'm just so disinterested in this because, again, I like Elias. I'd like to see him wrestle more. Corbin is...
you're going to have to pick one. I'm putting you on the spot because we're going to come back next week and we're going to compare these.
Fair enough. I will follow with you on this one as well because, like you say, nobody likes Corbin except Vince, so I'll go Corbin.
So, either we're going to be, maybe we're too big wrestling nerds because thus far we're going to be in lockstep. We got to disagree on one of these, right?
We do. I had some fantasy booking on up the card, but then I realized no, my fantasy booking is no way near what's actually going to happen. So I reeled that back in, and gave more realistic predictions. What's up next on your list?
Well, next I got the Raw Tag Team Championship. I got the Street Profits as the champs. They're defending against Austin Theory and Garza. And it's probably worth noting with this one that you talk about booking chance, talking about the pandemic and how it's affecting the card. Originally, we were going to get Andrade versus Rey Mysterio. And then Rey Mysterio is in quarantine and couldn't participate. So then it goes to a tag team match. Where you got Andrade and Garza in a tag team match, and then Andrade is hurt and can't go. So now you got the substitute for the substitute. So now your plans completely changed. Now it's a tag match for the championship, Street Profits versus Theory and Garza. Love Theory, love Garza, but they're a thrown together tag team. There's no storyline behind this because of the way they've had to go. And I don't see why you would. I don't see why you would take the belts off of Garza. Off of the Street Profits now.
Okay, so here's where we're going to disagree because this has been a hot mess
right.
from the beginning. I'm predicting the swerve here because you're right. There's absolutely no reason to take that belt off the Street Profits. This is. This has evolved so much. The possibility for the swerve there is too great because it's the obvious call, I think, to keep the belt on the Street Profits. So I'm going to go, and it's probably a long shot, but I'm going to go with Garza and Theory here. That way, when Andrade comes back, Selena Vega starts a little stable. She has even more to build with now, and it gives them something to do. If I'm booking long term here, this is probably my one fantasy booking that I kept in. But we've seen Theory live at the NXT show we saw in Columbus. Amazing kid. I really like what he could do. So let's put a tag team belt on him and let's go against what is the obvious. So I'm going with Garza and Theory on this one.
I will give you bonus points for using the word evolve in talking about Austin Theory. Very clever. All right.
What's up next?
What do you say about the women's tag? We got Bliss and Cross, who are trying to take the belts away from the Kabuki Warriors.
Oh my goodness, that's not even on my list. I completely missed that one.
Now.
Wow.
Off the cuff, what do you think?
It's time for the Kabuki Warriors and to be dissolved. It's time for them to lose, and I say that because Kairi Sane has been trapped in Japan for quite a while during this COVID thing. I'm assuming that she has actually made it back to the States to shoot her match because this has been pre-taped, and I think she's on her way out and heading back to Stardom. I mean, she is married to a New Japan wrestler. I believe she's married to Evil, so. Of New Japan, so I can see her heading back to Stardom since New Japan also owns Stardom now, and everything I've read is she's unhappy. I see Vince being the vindictive guy that he is, stripping her of the belts, putting over Bliss and Cross because everybody loves Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross is really gotten over. So it's time for the Kabuki Warriors to lose those belts.
This is another one we're going to agree on because, Bliss and Cross have made a pretty entertaining, odd couple on television, and the Kabuki Warriors have had the belts for a while. And for many of the reasons you just mentioned, I also figured this is another one where you're going to see a title change, which obviously down the road is going to lead to the dissolution of, Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross when, Alexa's ego gets carried away and she goes back to the dark side. But you got to set that all up with having the feel-good win at WrestleMania.
Absolutely. That takes some long-term storytelling, which would be great because, it's great to have that slow burn. So by, Monday night on Raw, we'll see that dissolution because WWE loves the hotshot things.
Well, you said slow burn though. The next one I had on my list is actually one that they've done a pretty good job about building, I think, and that is Kevin Owens versus Seth Rollins.
So there are two matches that I have this note on, and the first this is one of two matches where I say we all win for this one because
I think this is one of
because
the better matches on.
what's that? Well,
Definitely has a chance on paper to be one of the best matches on the card.
absolutely, because you've got Rollins, you've got Owens. These dudes can go. They've been going since what ROH in the early 2010s. So these guys can go. This on paper it looks good. At the end of it, I've got where is my notes. And this, okay, maybe a little bit of my fantasy booking slides in here too. But I see some heel shenanigans. We're gonna have intervention from the Rollins squad there, but eventually Owens will go over after some help from the Viking Raiders to equalize things out. And maybe if Joe's healthy, I'm not real sure what his status is right now, but maybe we see a Samoa Joe return here too. But anyway, I'm saying Owens goes over.
Suspended. Joe's off on a wellness violation.
Is he still off on it? I thought that was just 30 days. Is that already up?
I knew that I thought for some reason it meant he was not going to be able to participate in WrestleMania.
Oh, well, maybe so. I stand corrected, sir.
But I mean, it'd be great if he showed up.
I'm going with it's all a work. Just like Dean Ambrose going to AEW. It's all a work.
I'm picking winners and losers, and you got like a whole booking here. And this guy's going to come in. I'm like, man, he's booking this thing. We're going to disagree on this one, so we at least got two that we can, see who's right or who's wrong on.
Cool.
Kevin Owens is fantastic, one of my favorites, but he's also the lovable loser. He very rarely goes over, and I think you're going to have so many feel-good moments on WrestleMania with face victories that this is one where Owens doesn't really lose anything when he loses. He's still just as popular with the fans. I'm thinking that the shenanigans are going to go in Rollins' favor and that Rollins goes over in this one. But I do think it might be worth noting, too, maybe we should have noted this at the beginning, that because there are going to be cinematic versions of some of these matches, there will be so much shenanigans. Like this is one of the few that's probably going to be non-cinematic, that probably has a chance to be just a pure in-ring contest. And there's actually quite a bit of these on the upper part of the card where I think it's going to be more of the cinematic approach.
Yeah, I agree with that. We are going to get some definite cinematic action going on. So what's next on your list?
I got the SmackDown Tag Team Championships coming next. That is a ladder match. The champions, Miz and Morrison, defending against the Usos and the New Day.
So this match it's evolved quite a bit from what it started out as. So again, we've got the coronavirus rearing its ugly head in this match, because everything I've read says that Miz showed up sick and was sent home, and then things devolved from that point to where we're getting three individuals, pretty much one team member each, in this ladder match to actually try and go after the titles for their respective team, because Miz is out, so Miz and Morrison can't actually defend.
See, I had to an extent avoided anything about the tapings, because I was afraid of spoilers.
Right.
And I want to be able to give predictions without spoilers. I did not know that that had occurred. So yeah, that's definitely going to change the flavor of the match. I don't know that it's going to change my prediction. I think Miz and Morrison, having just got the belts recently and Morrison just returning, I think they're going to ride the Miz Morrison train a little while longer. And again, I think it's one of those where you can get the heels one of the victories on a show that's likely to have a lot of faces winning in the upper echelons. And this isn't an upper echelon, but I do think because of the workers involved, whether it's all six of them or the three, like apparently it's become, I think being a ladder match, you're probably going to see some of your bigger spots in this one, because these guys will work hard.
That's exactly what I'm thinking. I also have Morrison for the win after some insane spots by all, because I figure it's going to be the king of parkour. You're going to get Kofi in this ladder match, and then either Uso, has the agility to put on a spectacular ladder match. So you get either Uso, Kofi and Morrison jumping around doing the insane spots. It will end up being a great match, but in the end, Morrison goes over for the win and holds on to it for his team, which could lead to some down the road action where, again, I'm fantasy booking, which I was going to try not to do, but I just can't help it. That leads us down the road to where Morrison's ego gets the better of him, and Miz and Morrison break up because Morrison has now defended and kept the titles for them both by himself. So there's some interesting ways that could go. But again, Morrison for the win here. I agree.
I'm with you. What do you got next?
Let's see. I've got Intercontinental Championship, Sami Zayn and Daniel Bryan. Thoughts?
That's what I had on my list too. I think, again, sleeper match. You got two guys that are about equal size, have done their time in the Indies and Ring of Honor, and will work hard to put on a traditional wrestling match in a show that's going to rely a lot more on gimmicks and tricks than normal because of the situation. Again, this is another one like Rollins and Owens that we mentioned earlier that has a chance to be a one-on-one, not spot fest professional wrestling match. Probably means they'll probably separate it on a different night than Rollins and Owens now that I'm thinking about it. But Zayn just got that belt, but Zayn doesn't wrestle very often. Bryan's indicated that he wants to wrestle maybe once or twice a month, so it was really hard to decide which, a outcome based on those two factors. But I'm going to go Daniel Bryan. And I'll fantasy book here. Gulak will take credit for, training Bryan. And then, of course, they have to have a big blow off in a series down the line. It just came to me.
I like it. I like the fantasy booking. See, here's where we deviate again. So this is good because, this is the other match I have notes that say we all win because we've got Zayn and Bryan, going head to head. So, I'm picking Zayn after some shenanigans by the rest of his squad. Gulak will get involved and try and even the odds. But at the end, because I'm thinking Sammy's just got that belt. You're right, he doesn't wrestle that much, but you can, I think some belts don't have the exact prestige that they once had. So you can have a champion with a championship belt that just kind of runs around and really doesn't even wrestle and just carries it around and does a lot of trash talking and really gets over as a heel because he really doesn't even wrestle. He does all this trash talking, just wrestles occasionally. So I'm going with Sami Zayn for the win with this one.
All righty. Another disagreement. How about the NXT women's match? We got Ripley as the champion, the only NXT match on the card, and because of the pandemic, the only NXT match of the weekend since there's no takeover. And you got Ripley and the Queen, Charlotte Flair.
So I chewed on this one for a while because there's some very good arguments for both sides, and why one would get the belt over the other. But at the end, and maybe it's a little bit of fantasy booking because I can see the argument for Charlotte taking the NXT belt, Charlotte being on NXT then, and then that gives some major star power. Not that NXT needs it, but maybe there's some perception that NXT can have some star power then to go up against AEW on their Wednesday Night Wars. But in the end, I went in an opposite direction. I'm saying Ripley retains after an epic show. I think it could possibly be the show stealer for the entire weekend. And then Flair absolutely loses nothing by a loss to Ripley. She goes on back to Raw and continues what she's doing there. Her character will recover from a loss. But she will go out of her way to put Ripley over. It will make Ripley, and it will draw more eyes if Ripley wins, I think, because it's going to draw more attention to an NXT talent, not a what people would consider a main roster talent. It's going to draw more eyes if the NXT talent goes over the main roster talent and then goes back to NXT. And I'm going with Ripley.
You swerved me there. I'm thinking, oh great, he's going to go for Flair, and then you went the other direction after giving all the reasons why Flair should win. So it swerved me to end up exactly where I thought we were going to have one more that we could battle out next week as to who got more right. But no, we're going to agree on this one too. Flair's been champion 20 whatever times, and that means she's lost it 20 whatever times. She's a superstar. She's a focal point of that division, whether she wins or loses. obviously this is a bigger moment for Ripley, who they've invested a lot behind. A win on a WrestleMania stage over Charlotte Flair benefits Ripley, does nothing to hurt Charlotte. And I think they'll have I agree with you. They could possibly steal whatever night they were put on and maybe even steal the whole weekend.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Let's see. Let's see where we are on the list here. I think we've knocked out, let's see, tag teams, SmackDown tag teams, Intercontinental, Owens, Rollins, Women's Championship, SmackDown. Let's go ahead and hit that one.
Yes, okay. We got your champ, which is Bayley, and she is defending in a multiple-person match, which I hate these, but Naomi, Lacey Evans, Tamina, and Sasha Banks. And it's one of those, no real storyline here, so let's get everybody paid, which I can appreciate that they want to get as many people at the pay window as possible. But when you have that much talent in the ring, and they're all talented, but there's no real huge story behind it. For me, the story that is here is that Bayley is the longest champion in all of WWE at this point. She's held that belt that long, believe it or not. Her bestie there is Sasha Banks. There's got to be some friction in this match between the two of them. The others are just there to fill a role. I think it's going to be a show where you see Sasha do something to show her true colors, and I think that they finally get the belt off Bayley, but they keep a storyline out of it by having it go to Sasha Banks. I know the company, for whatever reason, which is insane, seems hot and cold on Sasha Banks as far as ever fully getting behind her, but I think she picks up the belt at WrestleMania this weekend. And I didn't mean to say belt, Vince. Don't cancel us.
Great, man. Okay, so we're going to disagree on this one, so this is good. So, I agree that we are going to see Bayley lose. I agree that we're going to see a lot of tension between Sasha and Bayley. We're going to see that play out quite a bit, and I think it will turn into something after WrestleMania, but I'm going with Naomi to get the win, to come out of nowhere with these two, because the story is going to be Bayley and her bestie Sasha. And Sasha is an excellent heel, and honestly, Bayley is an excellent babyface. I've somewhat enjoyed, heel Bayley, but I think, we're about at the end of that run. But out of this, Bayley, Sasha, a program will start up again. We'll get some of those, maybe we'll get some of that classic NXT stuff we got from back in the day, and maybe that's just me fantasy booking. But, I'm saying Naomi comes out of nowhere and wins.
All right, fair enough. It's at least one more that we can compare later on. So, last man standing, Orton, Edge. Again, maybe this is something we should have done a little preamble up front, but, with things obviously being as they are and not a normal WrestleMania, it's kind of a shame when I put my list together and start looking down and you're seeing, Owens, Rollins, and Edge, Orton, and some of the matches in the main event that Drew's moment, all these things coming, because I think that they've actually done a pretty good job with some of these stories and some of these journeys that they've told in a traditional WrestleMania sense, and it's kind of a shame that they won't have the traditional WrestleMania payoff on some of these because of the circumstances. This is one that I'm only so on modern day Randy Orton, but I think that Edge has brought the best out of him in the promos. I've liked the story they've told up to this point. The return of Edge was a feel-good moment. Obviously, last man standing and the new environment that they're going to be in as opposed to a regular WrestleMania, it gives them a lot of outs to cover up any rustiness on Edge's part or, any laziness on Orton's part. But I think that this one might have more gimmicks than I would prefer. But I think that Edge goes over. I just think that he just returned, and I think they want him to have that feel good moment at WrestleMania, but I could easily make the argument going the other way.
Well, I'm not going to make that argument. I'm going to agree with you on this one. because you're absolutely right. You know, they have, this is one of the other ones that they have actually built something, had time to build a storyline and weave it together. So, and Edge coming back is going to be that feel good moment. You know, he is not going to get that pop in front of 80,000 people when, you know, we get that 3 count, but, you know, we're still going to get that win, that feel good moment from Edge. You know, this returning veteran after what, 9 years out of the game. You know, it's going to be a brutal match, and again, like you've been saying, they can take some liberties here and shoot in a more cinematic style. They can do some things that they normally couldn't do, or maybe and probably even shouldn't do, considering Edge's injuries that took him out for 9 years. But they're going to do those things. It's going to look very brutal. And we are constantly going to get reminded by the announce team of all of Edge's injuries and everything that took Edge out of the game for so long, and how Orton is working that to his advantage. But in the end, we're going to see Edge go over.
Fair enough.
Ooh, we're getting to the big dogs now. No pun intended. So since I just walked us right into that one, you want to go ahead and tackle the Goldberg?
Just go ahead and take them.
Goldberg.
This is probably the big news, though, right? I mean, as far as like, I know we're doing a match by match comparison here, but as far as like WrestleMania news, this is probably the most prevalent story. Doug, I'll let you tell it.
Sure, and let me preface this by, you know, spoilers. If you stay out of wrestling news and are just going solely by what's on the shows, you may want to skip ahead of us talking about this, because WWE has made absolutely no mentions of this change to the card. So I'll give you a count here. I'll give you a 3 count, and then we're going to go into spoilers on this Goldberg Roman Reigns match. So 1, 2, 3. If you're still here, you've been warned. So Roman Reigns, being a 2-time leukemia survivor, has a compromised immune system and has pulled out of the WrestleMania event because of everything that's going on with COVID-19, you know, the coronavirus. So it's just not in his best interest of his health, honestly, because someone with a compromised immune system is even more susceptible and could, you know, it literally could kill someone. Yeah, and that's kind of crazy to think of someone who's in, you know, as physically great shape as he is. But again, he has a compromised immune system. He has comorbidities because of that. And if he were exposed, it could be very, very bad for him. So rightfully so, he is pulled out of this event. From what I am understanding, the show will go on with Goldberg having an opponent, but again, WWE has not addressed this yet. It's my understanding that it will be storyline related, and we will see something probably on SmackDown. I did see an interview with Triple H talking about how he didn't want to get into the details of it, but explained that they had some very interesting things going on, which they would lead in, he hinted, he didn't come out and say it, but at this point it has to show up on SmackDown this Friday at the very last minute to announce that Roman Reigns will not be wrestling Bill Goldberg. And it looks to me like if all the dirt sheets are right out there, we're going to see Braun Strowman versus Bill Goldberg at WrestleMania. So with that being said, I would have picked Reigns to defeat Goldberg, but now that we've got this, I see Big Bill keeping the belt. We're going to see spear, jackhammer, 1, 2, 3, done. It's not going to be anything spectacular. It's going to be quick. It's going to be easy. Bill's going to pick up a nice paycheck and hold on to that belt until SummerSlam, when all this, hopefully, all this coronavirus craziness is behind us. Everybody's healthy, and we can start actually congregating in groups of more than 2 people, and we'll see this match, Goldberg Reigns, at SummerSlam.
I wanted to go the other way. I really thought that this might be one of those, you know, Goldberg only had so many dates that he was wanting to work, and thought he'd be dropping the belt at Mania and could move on with his life. And then it might be a good time to swerve and just go ahead and let Strowman take it. But I kind of agree. I have Goldberg holding on to it long enough to drop it to Reigns or somebody else. in a match that's thrown together like this. Sometimes they like to throw you by going the direction that you don't think they would, but I think they're going to go with the predictable direction on this one and let Goldberg retain in what is hopefully a very short match, or if not at this point, because they can, a very heavily edited match so that you don't, which is also a possibility. They might not just save all the tricks just for the outer ring stuff. That may be something to keep in mind as we're going through some of these.
And let me just say, my fantasy swerve for this, with Reigns being out, would be that all the news outlets have got this completely wrong because WWE has leaked misinformation, and we're going to see Matt Riddle versus Goldberg. I would love that, but I'm sure it's not happening. But
that one would be one that would be best probably to save in front of a crowd because you'd want that reaction.
You do want that pop.
Man,
yeah.
That would be great. Firefly Funhouse. John Cena making his return against the Fiend Bray Wyatt. I like the Bray Wyatt character. Cena at this point in his career is what he is. He's a legacy star. He shows up. I mean, it's his first match in forever. Who knows what in the world a Firefly Funhouse match is? It's on its face a pretty obvious one to get the bag of tricks treatment, and I think we'll see all those bag of tricks to put this one together and off. I'm actually going to go Bray. I know that you think that Super Cena wins all the time, but I don't know that he cares so much anymore to win or lose. I think he'll show up. I think he'll do what he does, and he'll be fine. But not one I'm most looking forward to, but I'm going to go. I'm going to go with the Fiend.
We agree too much. Let me just start with that. So I'm also saying the Fiend goes over here because at this point I really want to believe that the WWE is not going to triple down on the Bray Wyatt losses, because I think the Fiend loses something and has lost some of that magic that was initially there with not the loss, but the Seth Rollins match. First that, and then dropping about the Goldberg. The Fiend has lost some ground. The Fiend has lost some of his magic. Cena is, like The Rock, is more of an actor now, definitely much more of a part-timer. He's going to lose nothing by losing, and I think he can do the company that he's been the face of for so long a huge favor here by putting over Bray, letting the Fiend get that win, and do some very, I would like to think that it could be really unique and really interesting things with a Firefly Funhouse match, which they have the ability to edit and really work on and shoot in a very cinematic style. So I'm actually curious to see what can be done, because I think it can either be really, really good or really, really bad. But at the end of the day, I think Bray Wyatt Fiend goes over here, over Cena.
I'm expecting some broken Matt Hardy type of
teleporting
shenanigans.
Yeah, shenanigans for sure. Yeah,
and you're going to really think, okay, that's hilarious, or depending on which night they have it and how long you've sat there, you might just scratch your head going, "Oh, come on, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen."
Yep,
that could go either way. And while we're on the topic of that, maybe we should just go ahead and do this next one as well. Boneyard match, because it's going to be the same thing. And I think that they might, for that reason, put the Firefly Funhouse match on one night, Boneyard on the other, because I think there will be similar in the fact that this is going to be one of those bag of trick matches. And in my notes, in my mental notes, there's two matches that I'm most disappointed about as far as what the current very serious situation, which is obviously more serious than our entertainment and our wrestling. But as far as what I think is going to hamper the most, I would have loved to have seen a straight up WrestleMania contest between The Undertaker and a performer like AJ Styles. I think an AJ Styles might be able to, and a motivated Undertaker who got himself in shape might be able, AJ, to bring something out of Taker we hadn't seen in the last couple of Manias. But because of the kind of match that it is, you're going to be in a graveyard. You're going to, have, the bag of tricks, all the cinematic cutaways and the things that might make you go, that's so cheesy. I'm embarrassed that I'm watching it. When, if it was an in-ring contest, AJ versus The Undertaker, the story they've told up to now has been intriguing to me. I'm just sorry that the match is going to be in the format that it is. All that said, I think it's time, after a couple of high-profile WrestleMania losses, AJ again loses nothing when he loses because he's over no matter what. I think the dead man starts a new streak. I don't think they keep him on a losing streak. What say you?
You know, I agree. Absolutely 100% with everything you just said. It's like you read my notes. Because I had in my notes that, you know, an actual in-ring match, you know, we get that Saudi Arabia redemption. AJ brings out the best in Taker. AJ, you know, Taker gets the redemption. We see that you know, the dead man can still go. We especially when he's in the ring with somebody like AJ Styles, we get to see that. However, that's not what we're going to get. We're going to get, like you say, a very cinematic, gimmicky kind of thing at this point. And I don't know if that maybe is a shifting of gears at the last minute to kind of compensate for the situation that that we all find ourselves in as wrestling fans, and the WWE finds himself in with the just the nature of the way they're having to shoot and present WrestleMania this year. Because in an in-ring performance with, you know, The Undertaker and AJ Styles could be one of those, you know, Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, you know, showstoppers. We're not going to get that, but at the end of the day, the dead man is going over.
All right. Either we've been friends too long, or we just watched wrestling too long, or both, right?
Probably a little bit of both at this point.
Doug, we're down to 2 matches, and I had these last on my list because I think these are the respective main events, depending on which one they have on Saturday night, which one they have on Sunday night.
I totally agree.
You want to tackle the women?
I'll tackle the women because I think it'll be main event for Saturday night, and then the men's Raw Championship will be main event Sunday night. But, you know, in my fantasy booking, I have like some really ridiculous 4 horsewomen shenanigans going on, but, you know, that's not what's going to happen here. You don't set Shayna Baszler up as the female Brock Lesnar, as this beast that will destroy everything and anybody in her way at the Elimination Chamber to have shenanigans happen. She doesn't need help in destroying and just eating Becky Lynch alive, which is what she is going to do. It's going to be brutal. It will probably be... It won't be quick, but it will be brutal. And Baszler is going to come out on top to the point where 2 belts Becky is going to be off TV for a while. That's the way I'm calling this one.
So this time last year, there wasn't a hotter wrestler on the planet than Becky Lynch, male or female. Maybe in the history of WrestleMania season, did you ever have someone who was as over as Becky Lynch was over at this point in time last year? It was as much her text coming through. It was as much her that sold that WrestleMania main event last year. They got the women there as it was, you know, Ronda Rousey. Because of that, I think that it's definitely Vince, with the benefit of having 2 nights, is wanting to have one of the main events be women yet again. He doesn't want to come down. But there's no doubt that Becky's character isn't as hot this year as she was this time last year. It's all about Baszler. She looks like a monster. Becky, I think there's more value in her at this point. It's no fault of hers. She's still an amazing performer. It's like when you're as high as anyone's ever been going into last year's WrestleMania, it's hard to go anywhere but down after that. And whether it's been a lack of credible opponents or just, you know, less interest without Rousey around, it's taken Baszler to get back on the scene for me, or most folks, I think, to be as high on Becky again. So I think this is going to be a fantastic contest. But I think that there's more value for Becky down the road to be the underdog chasing than to continue to hold the belt. So I say it's Baszler's time. We agree yet again.
I've got a
which
feeling.
Leaves us one match, which we are going to agree on, I'm sure.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure we're going to agree on Lesnar versus McIntyre too. I'm going to let you go first on it though, because I do think it will be the main event Sunday night to close out the WrestleMania weekend. What are your thoughts?
I mentioned earlier that AJ Undertaker was one of the matches that I most regret is going to take place under the circumstances. In that instance, it's because the format will be different than the one I would like to see. For this one, this is the other match that I was foreshadowing earlier, I think they've done such a great job with this story. This is the classic WrestleMania story where they have started from Royal Rumble when they made Drew McIntyre, when he went from someone that the hardcore fans thought was underutilized, and then one night they made him a main event star, and his journey to WrestleMania should be taking place in front of 80,000 people. I'm sorry for him that this contest is not going to have the atmosphere of a big crowd, because it would be one of those feel-good moments in a heavyweight main event with two giant men like Lesnar and Drew taking each other on. But to complete that hero's story, Drew has to be the victor in this, and Lesnar, the mighty Lesnar, who falls to very few, will use the WrestleMania stage to do the job, and Drew McIntyre is your new champion.
Yes, my friend, we once again agree, because and even down to the reasons why, it's just disappointing for McIntyre, because this is his time. He is going to go over. It's clear that Lesnar is into him just from the way he sells and the way he's made him look leading up to this. Lesnar is is going to put him over. He's going to make them look great. It's going to be a great match. We're going to see suplexes, but a Claymore is going to end in this match, not an F5. It will be the Claymore that gets the 1, 2, 3. Drew's hand is going to be raised in front of an empty arena, and that's heartbreaking to a wrestling fan, because since he came back to the WWE and went through NXT, I still remember the match with Andrade where he drops the belt. He loses that match, and you can see the despair on his face, because he knows he is injured. And I'm pretty sure that was the point. He drops the belt. He is going to get called up to the main roster, but now he's injured. There's just this despair then. It didn't derail him, though. It took him a while to rehab and get back into it. He makes it to the main roster. This is his time again. And now he finally gets there. The Showcase of Immortals, the grandest stage in wrestling. And he's going to get his hand raised and a belt handed to him in an empty arena. It's going to be disappointing, but Not the match itself, but the end of the match, where there's that pop that should be there. There should be 80,000 screaming fans for him, and I'd like to think that there is 1 million plus people screaming. When he finally hits that Claymore and gets that 1, 2, 3, people are going to jump off their couches and be cheering for him.
I think that I think we got 4 or 5 disagreements, but for the most part, on a 16-card show over 2 nights, it'll be interesting to see not just how, and we'll come back next week with our follow-up, to not just see how we did against each other, just to see how we did against the booking. We both may be in agreement, and we both may be totally off base with what they have planned, because this is not going to be your normal WrestleMania with your normal booking. And I think that, if we're to wrap things up with just an overall about the card itself, is that we don't know what we will never see another WrestleMania in our lifetimes, hopefully, like this one. So Absolutely. It kind of takes traditional booking out the window. But one thing I wanted to say for sure before we wrap, and I saw an interview on The Bump actually this week with AJ Styles, and I just thought it was a good way to summarize things. He just talked about the fact that with all that we have going on in the world, and we know what all we have going on in the world, that for a couple of nights, try not to be overly critical. It's WrestleMania. If this is the thing you loved as a kid, be that inner kid. Just see if they can take you out of the moment of all. And I thought, we all can be critical. That's part of what we do. We're here to criticize. We're here to, decide what, we think should be happening. But with everything else that's going on, the situation is what it is. It's going to be pre-taped. There's going to be no crowd. There's going to be cinematic stuff that we, never had before and maybe won't like. But at the end of the day, these men and women are going to work hard because it's WrestleMania. And because it's WrestleMania, I'm wanting to be a kid on Saturday night, Sunday night, kind of forget about everything else, turn my brain off, and let these folks entertain me. And hopefully everyone out there watching can kind of do the same, because this is an escape for Doug, and I'm sure it is for you too if you're watching this. Let's try to escape for a little bit.
Man, I couldn't have said it any better. Everybody, take care of yourselves. We'll see you on the other side of WrestleMania.